Hi everyone, Lisa and Dan here from Fireside Strategic. We're on a mission to help business leaders achieve great results through human-centered strategy. We believe that businesses don't need to choose between investing in their humans and generating profit because it's the humans that create profit. In the Fireside Chat series, we're showcasing how leaders are transcending the challenges of the coronavirus crisis, and more broadly, unite strategic and human thinking and leadership. Today, we're excited to chat with Cliff Rowley, CEO of UpTempo Sports. Cliff, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. Real great opportunity to be here.
Thank you. Would you mind telling us a little bit about your story, how you came to be where you are today?
Sure. Wow. Where do I start?
Wherever feels most right.
I have to say, number one, I was blessed with a great family foundation to allow me to get into the things that interested me, which was very important. And I always just seemed to have an affinity for sport. And that sport allowed me to have tremendous experiences on the playing field, which then I soon recognized that most likely I'm not going to be a professional athlete here anytime soon. So maybe switching over to the business side of sport is going to be a much more viable and a much more longevity type opportunity for me. So very proud to be part of the UMass Sport Management program there. As an alum, it's the #1 sport management program in the country, and was involved with different internships throughout my tenure there at school, and then was fortunate to land an opportunity with this beautiful jersey behind me here, this organization called the New York Yankees, and built a tremendous network of friends and colleagues there, and started in corporate partnerships, and then went over into stadium operations because I always wanted to be an athletic director at an NCAA level. And so in order for me to do that, I needed to kind of switch over from pro sport to collegiate at some point. And as much as it was hard for some people to believe that I was leaving probably the pinnacle of sport, right, working for the New York Yankee organization and going to a mid-major program in NCAA. But I have to tell you, it was a great transition. Monmouth University was a great institution, had great experiences there, and working with student athletes and being involved in their development as not only a student, but athlete, but then also professional, because most of them are not going to be going on playing pro sport. They're going to be getting into their respective careers. So it was rewarding to be a part of that process, really. But to where I am today, one day I was just at a practice, a football practice at Monmouth University, and I saw a gap in the sports drink market. And that gap was basically that everyone was drinking the same products. So, a soccer player was drinking the same as a football player, or, any other sport that you want to draw a comparison. When you look at that, I started to ask the question, why? Well, soccer is very different than football, very different than other sports. So why are we all drinking the same formulas? It didn't really make sense to me. So I started asking questions and doing some research and seeing, well, are there any products that are sport specific in formulation in the beverage category? And the answer was no. And in my family, there's PhDs of chemistry, food science, and throughout my travels in sport and meeting nutritionists, friends that are professional athletes, et cetera, I kind of put everyone in the same room, so to speak, and said, look, is this possible if we build this concept of sport-specific formulations? And everyone said, wow, that's a great idea, so on and so forth. So then then we started working on building that, and the brand was UAID. So UAID was the world's first sport-specific performance drink. And we were selling a soccer-specific formula. We were selling a football-specific formula. We had developed basketball and baseball and things along those lines. We've had some government relations. We had some government contracts. We were able to do some things there where it was exciting. But for the most part, it allowed me to also expand the brand. How do we, there's a lot of competition in that category. So you're dealing with a lot of the big brands, the big names, and we understood that. But we knew that we can still grow in many different ways to where we are today, where we've pivoted to a transdermal patch, where we are looking to deliver hydration elements, performance elements directly to the bloodstream, which is medically has a higher efficacy.
Wow, I love that. I love that you identified this need and filled in something that's so specific and so niche, and that makes so much sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is, look, I think good brands and good products solve problems,
Right?
right? And I think in order to be a quote unquote player in any market, especially if you're the David in the fight, you have to be able to identify a problem and provide a unique solution. And I think that goes across any market, any product, any service, because when you start doing things the way that everyone else is doing them, you kind of fall between the cracks a little bit. If you don't have those resources to be able to continually put your brand out there through advertising, whatever it is, we need to be innovative in how not only we create our product, but how we approach the market.
I love that. Would you mind telling us a little bit more about your team?
Sure. I have to say I'm really proud of our team. I really am happy to have everyone that we have in place. You know, when we're doing something like this, the medical side is very important, right? So we do have a medical doctor in place that specializes in electrolytes, and he is a tremendous asset to our organization. We have people that are involved with senior marketers of branding and developing the identity of the hydra patch, which is the name of what our transdermal patch is. We have some legal people involved. We have business development people involved. So we have about a team of 10 plus at this point. We're also now looking to expand our team and building individual divisions that will oversee certain markets. So as an example of that, we just recently brought on a track and field coach, Division I track and field coach, who is now going to be overseeing the entire running division, which obviously has many different outlets into, you know, triathlons, marathons, you name it, any type of running event out there. We're very confident that our director of this division is going to help us gain some traction in this area.
Hydration is so important in so many different domains. So we think about it here in terms of sports, but just as a regular human being, you're walking around the world, you're going about your day, there's going to be some stress. The easiest thing in the world is to not be hydrated enough. I'm always trying to remind myself, drink more water, right?
It's amazing, you know, Dan, because actually 75% of Americans are considered dehydrated every day. You know, that's 245 million Americans. And you know, so now you start expanding those stats and you start looking on a global scale. You know, some of these third world countries don't even have drinking water, right? So how are they staying hydrated? What are the things that they're doing? So when you really start expanding this concept, dehydration is very serious in a lot of cases. Everyone has different elements to how they experience. Is it headaches? Is it fatigue? Is it, you know, loss of focus? In some cases, it's led to death. In some severe sporting examples, there's been pro athletes that have went through very, very tough training camps and things where they have actually, unfortunately, had passed. So, you know, it's a very serious thing where, you know, and from an employee standpoint as well, if you're not hydrated, you're not as productive. There's a lot of research that shows that. So there's so many different aspects to staying hydrated, the wellness piece. Lisa, you mentioned health wellness is something that, you know, connects with you. There's so many different things that this really can help people on multiple scales, whether you're just trying to repair or recover from a long marathon, whether you're just trying to get through your 9-to-5 day, whatever it is. The Hydra Patch is something unique and innovative that is basically going to be new to this market.
Makes total sense. So as you speak about leadership, which you just did there, I'm curious to dive into that a little bit more with you. How would you describe your leadership style, Cliff?
I would say my leadership style is I'm extremely communicative. which I think is very important. I believe some of the battles are lost when communication isn't there. When people aren't, oh, I didn't realize that that's what you meant, or oh, I didn't know that that's what you were trying to say, or and those little hiccups in business can cause very serious tremors throughout your organization, right? So I think I might over communicate at times. I think my team is like, hey, Cliff called me 7 times today, and I don't do it from a micro standpoint. I really like to lead from a macro perspective. The team member that we just brought on, our track and field coach, he's going to run that department. He's going to run that division. He's going to run with it. I want them to I want to bring on experts in their field, and I want them to be able to lead the charge in their area. But when it comes to, communication, sometimes, I might hit them up with 20 emails or here, just so they know that we're in communication. Because I think during this pandemic, and I'm sure we'll get into this, the areas of communication, staying in contact with your people, understanding what everyone's going through, show them what you're going through too, so you appear human to them in a sense, because we're in this thing together. And I think those are all key components of leadership generally, but also during this tough time.
Totally agree. And do want to get to COVID, but before we do, one last thought on communicating and erring on the side of over communicating. Couldn't agree more with you. I look at the beginning of my career, and I under communicated, and I was obsessed with being right and being seen to be right.
Right.
And so when I was a young lawyer and I didn't understand instructions, sometimes I wouldn't ask for clarification. The reason I didn't is because I wanted to appear like I immediately got everything.
Right.
And so when you can have the humility from a subordinate perspective to ask for clarification, if you don't understand anything, it's totally cool to not be seen to have all the answers immediately. Much better to admit that you don't know the answers and that you're going to do the work to figure them out.
Exactly. I like to kind of say, measure twice, cut once, right?
Yeah.
So, if you take the time to measure twice, you only cut that one time and you're able to make that decision. And to your point is, if you ask those questions in the beginning, you're able to then make that one decision that you needed to.
Exactly. So you alluded to COVID. Curious, how are things going at UpTempo prior to COVID, and how has COVID changed things for you guys?
Well, I mean, look, I think COVID has allowed us an opportunity to really kind of dissect what we've been doing and how do we approach moving forward. And I think it's given us all that opportunity, really. How do you adapt to these challenging times? Business is changing for all of us. So I think for us, we're focusing now on, delivery systems and being able to understand the needs of our consumers and how does that change. And, basically, like I mentioned before, how do we present solutions for those changes? And I think we're going through it as a team every day where different ideas are coming up, and we just have kind of regular discussions about how we really look at the U8 brand progressing during these times. And we're very confident that we're making some strides in that. And, I believe, unfortunately, in a lot of cases where there's tough times, I also think there's opportunity. And I think it's up to us as leaders to distinguish what that opportunity is for each organization.
I love that you're using this time to assess the opportunities. Would you mind telling us a little bit more about how things are? You mentioned that the way that things are running within the team is changing. You also mentioned that you're kind of looking into some of the silver linings of the situation. Would you mind just giving us a little bit more detail about how things have changed, how the way that you communicate and the way that you lead may have changed due to the crisis?
Well, I like to say, I think just more patience, I think, where you're, even just on the manufacturing side of things, like even external of our team, we rely on working with vendors, and we work with many different companies, and, things that maybe would have taken a week before now are taking about a month or a month and a half. So I think patience is a really big thing that I've been learning a little bit more throughout this process, because, you know, as a leader, you want to get things done. And I've always been in the mindset, and this, you know, the organizations that I've been a part of aren't the great organizations they are today without that mentality of, hey, let's get things done. Let's keep moving. Let's keep progressing. So I think the patience factor, the understanding of where we are, has allowed us, almost by default, has pushed us into that assessment stage to now say, okay, if we're now waiting for something that would take a week normally, it's going to take us a month. What else can we be doing during this time to make ourselves better positioned to take on this pandemic?
It makes total sense. It's so easy in business because there's this rah-rah culture about execute, go, go, go.
Mm-hmm.
It's so easy to fall out of that patient mindset and that sort of long-term thinking. And so I'm curious, if you think about some of the next steps, some of the goals in mind for UpTempo and U8 over the next little while, what are some big things that you'd like to accomplish next?
I think the biggest thing for us is, you know, we're still pre-market on our product. So we want to make sure that we develop the best product possible. That's number one, right? So that's where we really need to start this brand. Once we do that, once we get to where we feel this product is ready to go, I think the next step is establishing the strategic alliances that we need, that we feel are going to be helpful in getting the brand out to the marketplace. So, you know, is that going to be professional sports teams? Is it going to be youth organization teams? Is it going to be esports? Is it going to be running? Is it going to be, you know, so really just establishing all the best viable potential markets to make sure that we're telling the story about the Hydra patch in an impactful and educational way, really, number one, because I believe as much as transdermal technology has existed back by the Romans used to use, you know, they used to wrap rags with medicine in it and, you know, would wrap it around their skin, and technically that's a transdermal application, right? Fast forward to, you know, to the market of nicotine patches and, you know, birth control patches. And so the patches have existed over time, but it's a different deliverable and it's a little different space. So I think educating people, letting them know what this technology does, what are the benefits of it, is certainly a goal of ours as well.
I love that you're using this time that has forced all of us to slow down, forced all of us to be a little bit more patient, to be very thoughtful about your strategy, about your product, about your communication plan. You're really, in an interesting way, taking advantage of this slow period to build a better company.
I think we have to, Lisa. I think it's on all of us to do that. You have to take advantage of any time that we have, right? Because we don't know what's holding tomorrow for us. So you have to take advantage of the present. And how do you seize that moment? How do you go about operating in a difficult time? I think we're all learning individually, professionally, on many different facets, right? So I think it's up to us to say, okay, if something was so normal, you know, during this period of time, well, how do we make it somewhat normal during a unprecedented time? The biggest play is understanding our environment, making the most of what we can do right now. And to be honest, sometimes things move too fast. I think sometimes in business you can go too fast.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes it's good to kind of sit back and let the dust settle a little bit. So I think for us, I'm a very spiritual person as well. I like to stay connected spiritually. And for me, sometimes it's nice just to kind of take that spiritual approach and patience is a virtue, lay back and see how things play out.
That's beautiful. Cliff, as we're kind of entering the last phase of the interview, we like to finish up with a bit of a lighter question. We've been talking about some, business strategy and leadership. But one thing that we've been asking all our interviewees is, during this time of lockdown, what are you doing for fun?
That's a good question. Actually, I'm trying to exercise a little bit, try to get out, walk outside, either get on the bike a little bit if I can. But for the most part, it has been a lot of working, but, you know, and I'm trying to, I wanted to read a little bit more too, but I just haven't really been able to get to it, as I've really been staying crunching many different facets of the business and getting out to market. But yeah, exercise is what I've been trying to do.
A good aspiration for all of us to pay some
Yeah.
attention to. Cliff, are there any social media handles, anything you would want our audience to look at online if they want to follow your journey?
Sure. Basically, Hydra Patch is going to be our handle for Instagram, Facebook, and as we develop some of our other social media outlets, that's the one we look to promote. But at this point, at Hydra Patch is really what we're going to be pushing.
Beautiful, beautiful, awesome. Well, Cliff, listen, it's been a real pleasure. Loved hearing about your journey from thinking about sports as, oh, I really want to be that athlete, to, wait a second, maybe the business side of sports is where I want to be. And
Right.
looking at beautiful product development, patience, slowing down, and really taking the time to ensure that powerful, important product you're building is going to be the right fit for the market. So well
Thank you so
done,
much.
and so enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm actually upset it's over. I wish we could kind of continue this a little bit longer. So thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it, and continued successes with your guys' mission as well.
Thank you so much.